There is something uniquely captivating about the idea of a cruise ship. It is a floating utopia, completely detached from the exhausting responsibilities of the mainland. You step aboard, the horn sounds, and you are supposedly leaving all the darkness of the real world behind. But what happens when that illusion shatters? What happens when the ultimate escape turns into an inescapable crime scene?
It becomes a claustrophobic nightmare. That is exactly what we are looking at with the Kepner case from earlier in 2025. It is a story that completely stripped away the glossy, carefree veneer of the luxury cruise experience. You have thousands of people having the time of their lives, sipping cocktails by the pool, while just a few decks down, a deeply suspicious death is unfolding. And the most unsettling part isn't just that a life was lost, but the massive, gaping void of certainty surrounding how it actually happened.
Right. The line between a tragic accident and calculated foul play is incredibly blurry here. And what really escalated this from a tragic headline into a global fixation was the immediate involvement of the federal authorities. Usually, an accident at sea gets handled quietly, swept under the rug of international maritime bureaucracy by corporate fixers. But the FBI stepping in suggests there is something much darker beneath the surface. Why does an agency like that suddenly take the reins on a commercial cruise ship?
It is all about jurisdiction and glaring red flags. When a vessel is in international waters, the legal landscape is notoriously murky. It is often referred to as a jurisdictional black hole. But when an American citizen dies under circumstances that cannot be immediately explained away by a slip and fall, federal investigators have the authority to intervene. Their presence alone tells us that the initial evidence, or perhaps the suspicious lack of it, pointed away from a simple mishap. Cruise lines are incredibly efficient at managing their public image. They want everything to look like an unfortunate, isolated accident. So, for external investigators to push past that corporate shield means they saw distinct anomalies. Maybe it was the physical state of the cabin, glaring inconsistencies in passenger testimonies, or discrepancies in the digital footprint of the door locks.
It feels like the ultimate locked room mystery, except the room is $1 billion floating city with thousands of transient suspects, and the crime scene is constantly moving across the ocean. Think about the sheer logistics of that. How do you even begin an investigation when the environment is quite literally designed to be cleaned, sanitized, and reset every single day?
That is the investigator's absolute worst nightmare. On land, you can tape off a house, lock the doors, and the scene remains relatively pristine for weeks. On a megaship, you have housekeeping staff turning over rooms, thousands of passengers walking the corridors, and the literal ocean breeze degrading forensic evidence by the hour. If it was foul play, the perpetrator had the perfect environment to operate in. They could blend into a sea of tourists wearing sunglasses and sun hats, and any physical evidence could simply be tossed over the balcony into the abyss. The ocean is the ultimate accomplice. It leaves no trace, it holds no memories, and it does not confess.
Which makes the fierce debate between accident and foul play so polarizing. On one hand, ships have balconies, alcohol flows freely from morning to night, and the decks can be slick. Tragic, mundane accidents do happen, but the specific circumstances surrounding this incident seem to defy that simple narrative. If someone wanted to commit the perfect crime, a crowded luxury liner in the middle of nowhere seems terrifyingly ideal.
Precisely. And that terrifying realization is exactly why this case is going to be a massive pivot point for the entire travel sector. We are looking at a watershed moment in maritime history. This incident isn't just an isolated tragedy. It is a brutal wake-up call that is going to fundamentally rewire how security operates on the water moving forward.
I want to dig into that because the ripple effects here are massive and they touch all of us. If we assume the industry is terrified of losing its reputation as a safe haven for families and retirees, The logical next step is a massive overcorrection in security protocols. What does a post-2025 cruise ship actually look like? Are we talking about the end of anonymity on vacation?
Without a doubt. The era of just wandering around a massive ship with nothing but a plastic room key in your pocket is over. To prevent another jurisdictional and public relations nightmare like this, the industry is going to have to adopt extreme surveillance measures. We are talking about pervasive, unavoidable biometric tracking. Imagine facial recognition cameras at every elevator bank, thermal imaging in the crew corridors, and advanced AI systems analyzing passenger behavior in real time. If you deviate from your normal patterns, or if two people enter a cabin and only one leaves after a certain number of hours, an algorithm will flag it to ship security before a human even notices something is wrong.
That is a staggering thought. It is essentially turning a luxury vacation into a floating panopticon. You are paying thousands of dollars to be constantly monitored, analyzed, and tracked by an artificial intelligence. It reminds me of a modern casino, where there is an eye in the sky watching your every single move, but applied to your bedroom door and your midnight walk on the upper deck. Do you think everyday people will accept that level of intrusion just to feel safe at the buffet?
I think they will, but they won't realize the heavy cost until they are already living in it. Humans have a fascinating, almost tragic tendency to trade their privacy for the illusion of absolute security. The cruise lines will be very smart about it. They won't market it as surveillance. They will market it as a seamless, personalized safety and convenience network. Your biometric data will unlock your door, pay for your drinks, and simultaneously track your exact coordinates on the ship at all times. It completely solves the locked room mystery problem, because the AI will know exactly who was in that specific hallway at 3 in the morning. But the philosophical cost is enormous. You are no longer escaping the grid. You are stepping into a tighter, more inescapable one.
It fundamentally changes the psychology of the vacation itself. The ocean used to represent boundless freedom, the vast unknown where you could disconnect. Now, it represents a highly controlled environment where you are merely a data point moving across a digital deck plan. But let's look even further out. Beyond just cameras and algorithms, what happens to the actual law? Because right now, the legal loopholes are big enough to steer a superliner through.
That is the other massive structural shift we are going to see. This case exposes the absolute fragility and absurdity of international maritime law. Right now, commercial vessels operate under flags of convenience. They register ships in countries with incredibly lax regulations to save money and avoid strict oversight. Moving forward, I think we will see an aggressive, international push for a unified maritime criminal code. Governments might start mandating that any ship carrying a certain number of their citizens must have independent, federally appointed law enforcement officers permanently stationed on board. Not just private ship security, whose primary loyalty is to the corporate brand image, but actual federal agents with real authority.
So, essentially placing a floating police precinct on every megaship that would completely strip the corporations of their ability to control the narrative when things go wrong. If an independent agent is the first on the scene, the corporate spin machine gets shut down immediately. But that also raises the cost of operation drastically, which of course gets passed down directly to the consumer.
Exactly. Cruising will become significantly more expensive, highly regulated, and heavily surveilled. The Wild West days of international waters are drawing to a rapid close, and it is deeply tragic that it takes a mysterious, unresolved death to expose the fatal cracks in the system. But historically, that is always how systemic change happens. It is written in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. This case is the catalyst that is going to force a multi-billion-dollar industry to finally take responsibility for the dark side of human nature that boards their ships every single week.
It really makes you wonder about the very nature of escapism. We build these magnificent floating palaces to get away from crime, stress, and danger. We want to believe that leaving the shore means leaving our problems behind. But we forget that we bring humanity with us when we board. And wherever humanity goes, our capacity for malice, accidents, and dark secrets naturally follows.
That is the ultimate paradox of the entire industry. You cannot build a wall high enough or sail far enough away to escape human nature. The ocean does not change who we are, it just isolates us. And in that extreme isolation, the masks we wear on land sometimes slip. Whether what happened in that cabin was a tragic freak accident or a cold, calculated act of violence, it proved one terrifying thing. The middle of the ocean is not a sanctuary. It is just a stage with no exits.
A stage with no exits. That is a chilling way to look at it, but an undeniably accurate one. As the investigation continues, and federal agents sift through the digital and physical remnants of that fateful voyage, we are left waiting for answers that may never fully surface. But even without a neat, cinematic resolution, the legacy of this case is already cemented in history. It has permanently altered our collective perception of safety at sea.
It really has. I think the next time you stand on the deck of a ship, looking out at the endless black water at night, the feeling won't just be awe anymore. There will be a shadow there. A quiet, lingering realization of how fragile the barrier is between a dream vacation and an absolute nightmare. The industry will evolve, the cameras will be installed, and the laws will inevitably tighten. But the mystery of what truly happened in the dark hours of that voyage will always haunt the corridors of those ships.
It is a profound reminder that no matter how much luxury we surround ourselves with, the unknown is always just one step over the railing. The future of cruising will be safer, undoubtedly, but it will never be the same innocent escape it once was. We will keep watching the developments of the investigation closely, but for now, the dark waters hold their secrets. Thank you for diving into the depths of this complex and unsettling reality with us. Until next time, keep questioning the world around you, even the parts that look exactly like paradise.